Ah, Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant.
Whoa, that's refreshing.
And a 9.5 plus pH for every way you move.
I did take a spin class today.
Restoring like a pro. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
The #1 selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, out botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network. Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome back to the G-Spot. It's Grace Alice, your host here. I am absolutely buzzing for you to hear this episode. It's with the amazing Barbara Scully. And to give you an idea of how captivating and wise and insightful Barbara is, when I was trying to put together social media clips for this episode, I genuinely was struggling to pick quotes. There were so many gems coming out of Barbara's mouth. I was like, how do I condense this into a social media friendly clip? So there's so much packed in this episode. If you don't feel, empowered and inspired and invigorated and ready to take on the world after this episode, I can't help you. I don't know what to do, because Barbara is genuinely just captivating. She has so much wisdom. We talk about topics around sex and aging and the fear of aging and desirability and all these different things that are on a lot of our minds. A lot of women, no matter what age they are, women are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, all of us are conditioned to worry about these things. And it's not just women also, it can be anyone. But again, I think we've so much to learn from each other as women, and particularly women who are older than us. I just think they have so many of the answers. We just need to listen and take on some of their wisdom as best we can. So enjoy the episode. Don't forget to rate the podcast 5 stars, of course, review, and don't forget the bonus episodes where I dive into stuff a lot deeper and share some personal bits, etc. They're fab, and there's one released every week. So that's on Head Stuff Plus. Enjoy the episode. Barbara Scully, what's your official title? Because you're a writer, you're a radio presenter. What do you go by?
Basically writer and broadcaster.
Writer and
is
broadcaster,
the best,
okay.
yeah.
So we met for the first time in Ennis. So what were we saying, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
I think it was, what are we now? Yeah, it was about 2 years ago, I think. Yeah.
And that was kind of a women's health. Well, it was sexual wellness as well. It was menopause. It was a bit of everything.
I didn't know why I was there, but yeah, it was great crack, actually.
And then I saw you speaking in Listowel, which was great. So
yeah. Was that this year? Last year?
Last year, because I was living in Listowel for 2 years.
Lovely spot. Actually.
Yeah, it is. And when I saw your
spot.
name, I was like, I have to go to that. It's literally up the road. And I brought my mum, so you met my mum.
Was that to the Madonna effect that I did with?
That was it.
With Val Troy and Orla Doherty.
That was great.
That was great. We did that in Listowel, and we did it at the Writers' Week, and we did it at the Dorky Book Festival, and we did it at Dingle Literary Week. Okay. And it just went down a storm. Basically, we were talking about reinvention in your 50s.
Yes.
Kind of menopause, post-menopause, because I think it's a really interesting time of a woman's life. And the three of us, myself, Orla and Val, only know each other for about 3 years, I think now. But we all discovered that we had this commonality. Now, I'm older than the two of them.
Yeah.
But we all discovered that in our 50s, we all kind of reinvented ourselves, if you like. And we thought that was an interesting... Now, we explored it in, as you would have seen and heard, quite a light way.
Yeah.
It's something I am really passionate about because you mentioned menopause and there's so much talk about menopause, which is good.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember when nobody talked about menopause.
Yeah,
when
which
it was
was
referred
dark,
to as
I'm sure.
change.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody actually said it out loud.
Yeah.
And nobody really understood it. So I think it's great now that there's all the talk. But I do worry about how much talk is too much talk.
Yeah.
And I think so much of it is negative.
Yeah.
Some of it I would have a real issue with. Some of the things that we are told about menopause.
Okay, yeah.
Such as like stupid stuff like brain fog.
Yeah.
All women will get brain fog during menopause. Now, I'm old enough to remember when in the workplace, women were considered to be flaky as fuck during their period. So,
Yeah.
I mean, when I started work, it was acceptable for a male colleague. If you were, say, trying to make a point in an assertive manner,
Yeah.
for a male colleague to say, are you in your flowers? Is that what's wrong with you?
Oh
So
my
it was
God.
used as a way to disempower women and to make, and that was why we were kept, one of the reasons why, one of the excuses used to keep us out of positions of power.
Yeah.
So I get really itchy when I hear people saying that menopause will give you brain fog. And I object to that. I went off on a tangent there now. But anyway,
fine,
went
that's
off. Put away
fine.
your soapbox now, Barbara. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons I wrote my book, which I published in 2022, which was to say to women, menopause, only 25% of women suffer badly during menopause.
Okay.
Most women negotiate it
Fine.
with reasonable ease. It's
Yeah.
not the best
Yeah.
crack, but you know, and there are things that are difficult, but you get through it. But nobody talks about the fact that once the worst of menopause is over, you are into this amazing time of life. Like when I hit my kind of mid to late 50s, I was going, hang on a minute, nobody told me that this was actually... This is actually a great time of life.
Yeah.
We have evolved as a species to have menopause, which puts an absolute final end to our biological function of having children. And we now, my generation, which is older, obviously a lot older than you, I could expect to have probably around 30 years after menopause.
Afterwards, yeah.
That's a whole heap of time.
It's long.
And if you are lucky and if you mind your health, which is really important, you have energy and you have the enthusiasm and you have the freedom to do stuff just for you. And that's amazing. And that's my mission now, is to kind of say to women, yeah, menopause. But hang on in there. Even if you are having a tough time, hang on in there, because it's a temporary situation.
Yeah.
It's a portal. It's a gateway.
Yeah.
And once you get through it, it is amazing. And that is when women become truly powerful.
It is. And I was listening to you on a podcast where you were saying that you're a parent, but that your parenting is kind of done.
Done, yeah.
Which I love, because my mom says that as well.
Yeah.
And she gets sometimes funny reactions when she says that.
Yeah.
But she's a fantastic parent. She's been a fantastic parent, but she's like, I'm not parenting
You're
them
not parenting,
anymore.
no.
And I'm not their friend either. It's just
No.
something else.
I mean,
It's
I will
just-
always be their mother.
Yes,
And I would
obviously,
consider
yeah.
myself, and my mother used to say this, who was a very wise woman. She always used to say to me, like, this is your home. And she wasn't just referring to the house that
Yeah.
I grew up in.
Yeah.
She was referring to her.
Yeah, 'cause
in
that's
other
what it
words,
is.
I am your home.
Yeah.
And therefore, I am the person to whom you can tell your deepest, darkest secrets. I am the person who will not judge you because I love you unconditionally. So no matter if you came in tomorrow and said you murdered your husband, I probably wouldn't shop you to the police.
Yeah.
Like, I am that person.
Yeah.
And I will, I hope, always be that for my girls.
Yeah.
But I am not parenting them anymore, and that stops. And, you know, it's one of the, again, it's not talked about, but it's one of the, probably the more difficult parts of being a parent. And it starts to happen as they become 18, 19, 20, you know, head into college or whatever. And you start to think, I don't have the right to veto things anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have the right to tell. Like, I have a daughter who's, I am convinced, and I say this to her, addicted to tattoos and piercings.
Right.
But like, she'll come home and she'll show me her latest and she'll go, do you like that? And I'll go, no.
Yeah.
And I'll go, but like, it's not my business.
Yeah.
Like, do whatever you like.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
old enough
yeah.
to make your own decisions and I have no say.
Yeah.
You can ask me what I think and I will tell you honestly what I think.
Yeah.
But I can't. I'm not going to veto anything. I have no right to do that. You have the right. They have the right now to live their own lives. And the hardest thing is watching them make what you consider to be mistakes when you're going, oh, I don't know if that's the right thing for them to do.
Yeah, but you have to just...
But you have to button it unless they ask you. That's my rule. If they come to me and ask for my opinion, I will give it. But if they're happy with their decision, I'm happy to let them go and do whatever it is they want to do, you know?
And it's reminded me of, like, I would not have admitted this at the time, but like my mom was actually right about so much. Like so much. And we laugh about it now because even down to like when I was a teenager, I'd flit through different friend groups and stuff. And like she was right about the friends that just weren't really friends. But she'd say it in a kind of, like she wouldn't be, overbearing about it.
She'd
have an instinct for it though. Probably because we're very alike as well. So she's like, is she a bit dull? No, mom. Because she's pretty and, I have to hang, my values were all over the place as a teenager. I think we have a fridge magnet or something at home being like, you were right about everything. Dear mom, you were right about everything.
It's nice.
So obviously this is a sex and intimacy or relationships podcast. So what I'd love to know is how did you approach, let's say sex relationships education with your children? If you did, and it's okay if you did, but how did you approach it?
Shocking.
Compared to what you got?
I was shocking. Okay. Now what I got was shocking. It was worse shocking.
But it was less shocking than what you...
But I wasn't as good as I hoped I would be or thought I would be.
It's a really tough job.
Yeah, I fudged an awful lot, I think. I wasn't as direct as I should have been. But again, I mean, I was born in 1962. I went to a national school where there was no sex education whatsoever. I went into secondary school with the nuns, convent school, all girls. We had a nun who taught us sex education as part of our religious class.
Great.
In religion. Yeah. So I can always remember, and I got the job because I'm 6 foot tall. So anything in the school that required heavy lifting, I got to do it, right? So she had these huge, big, multicolored and anatomical charts. She had a male one and a female one. And I got to hold them up.
Oh, stunning.
So I never got to see them.
Oh, no.
I got to stand there like an idiot holding these for ages while she explained the anatomy, the male and the female anatomy, which was all like wildly exciting, as you can imagine, not. What I kind of remember about relationships and sex was being told very clearly by the nuns that we as girls had to be very careful when we were with boys. Because a boy, I mean, I remember this as clear as day, a boy, if we're involved in petting, that a boy can reach, it's a great word, a boy can reach the point of no return. And then it's not his fault.
Oh my God.
So we have to be very careful not to lead them to the point of no return.
Okay.
Can you imagine?
Jesus Christ.
And at the time I didn't fully kind of understand the implication of what she was saying, but that's horrendous.
That is awful.
Deeply horrendous.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got feck all sex education at school. I do remember my mother myself and my mother were really, really close and always were because I have no sisters and she had no sisters.
Same with me actually.
Yeah, we always got on really, really well. And I can remember when I was probably young, like, I don't know, 11 or 12, she'd given me a book called Married Love.
Okay.
And I remember
I can just imagine already what's in this. Yeah.
I can't even remember what was in it because I think I knew enough to go, what?
Yeah.
And I kind of discarded it.
Yeah.
I do remember going out once for dinner with her in the Tara Towers Hotel on the seafront there on the Merrion Road, which is no longer there. And she explaining to me in great detail and very vividly so that I understood it, what an orgasm felt like.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was
That's
very,
nice.
And I think I was probably a bit older, maybe 15 or so when she told me about that. But negotiating relationships, kind of discovering your own sexuality and all that kind of stuff, you were kind of left to your own devices.
Yeah.
I do remember, again, as I say, I left school in 1979. And I remember shortly after, and I mean, we had no exposure to boys other than at the kind of school discos or the rugby club discos every so often. We weren't hanging out, really. We didn't have a mixed group of friends. We hung out with the girls. Like, all my friends were the girls I was in school with. And it wasn't until we left school that our social circle started to include guys. But I do remember back then being almost paranoid about dumping my virginity. Like, I was like, oh God, I'd hate anybody to know I was a virgin. Right. So I really want to get rid of this ASAP.
Yeah.
I was unusual. And my friend group, I think most of my friends were happy to not have sex until they were married.
Okay, right.
I didn't go that route.
Yeah.
As a result, I ended up as an unmarried mother.
Yes.
In 1986, my daughter was born in 87. But again, like contraception was really difficult to get hold of.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we did grow up kind of, it was like stumbling around in the dark. You were left to your own devices, really.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky that I never came across, and again, maybe this has something to do with the fact that I'm 6 foot tall. So I'm not seen as a fragile woman. And I'm very lucky that any of the guys I came across and any of the guys that I had relationships with were nice guys.
Good. Oh,
and
good.
so I never had any really negative experiences.
Okay.
So that was good.
Yeah.
But as regards me giving my daughters, there's a big gap, obviously, because my eldest daughter is now 37. And then
with her own
now, 2
yeah,
kids. Yeah, she lives in Australia.
Yeah.
And then my next 2 are 26 and 24. One of whom now also has gone to Australia. I'm a great mom. All my kids go away
They're
as
all going to the
far
other
as
side of the
possible.
world.
And they don't go to London. They don't even go to New York. They go to flipping Australia. But anyway, so there was a big gap between them. And I certainly think with my eldest daughter, I probably gave her very rudimentary. I never took it that seriously, but also by the time she was a teenager, I had a toddler and a baby and I had a full-time job for a while, and then I decided to stay home. But I can remember just it all being so crazy. Yeah. I do feel guilty about that. I think for all her teenage years, I was distracted. And I think sex education came as part of that. I just was so distracted. With the other 2, I think I did make more of an attempt. But I can remember at the time thinking, I'm not great at this. I'm really not. And I think it's because of how I grew up never discussing sex and never talking about it. And my husband's English. He's much more comfortable talking about sex than I would be. And I hate the fact that I'm not, that I kind of still get tongue-tied about
Your body's betraying you there. It's like, stop it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I don't think I was brilliant. But what I love, particularly with the younger 2, is the fact that they are so much freer and they talk to their friends a lot. Yeah. And it's funny, there's a real contradiction because they're very modest.
Okay.
They don't get undressed in front of each other like we did. Like we had, when I was a young teenager and young woman, if you went into a clothes shop to buy clothes, the dressing rooms were generally communal. Yeah. Like there was no individual stalls. They were all... We also went away on holiday. And we wouldn't do this like down the road on the beach. But if you were away on your holidays, we all sunbathed topless. Yeah. That was the norm. And whereas the younger 2 are very much from a generation that are much more modest about their bodies with each other. Yeah. But they talk a lot more freely with each other. And I think that's good. And also... I love the fact now that their sexuality can be fluid and nobody has to fit into a particular anything. And I think that's just wonderful.
Yeah, it's so freeing. Like it's
just great, you know. And I'd love if we got to the stage where, you know, there wasn't this big thing about gay people coming out.
I know.
We could just accept.
There's no need to come out.
Yeah, we don't need to signal to anybody anything. You know what I mean? So, that's a very roundabout answer.
And your book is called Wise Up, isn't it? Just to mention that. And listening to you speak, I suppose, about your journey and your life. And again, the pregnancies at different points and all that was going on. So you came from... a time in Ireland where, again, there was let's just say a very sex negative time overall. Like
the
it
Catholic
wasn't
Church was just this smothering blanket.
It just was...
That smothered everything. It wasn't just sex. It was also how women should be in the world.
Oh, everything, And
it's only now I'm realising how much that was the fault of the church.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not letting society off the hook.
No.
But people were terrified of the church.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, a lot of that, I presume, is to do with our history of colonization and all that. You know, we gave the freedom that we wrested back from the British. We handed straight to the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think what we still don't know, the psychological impact, I think, that will reverberate down generations.
It'll be like centuries, I think. Now, hopefully the worry then is, does it change into something else? But like, you know, it's, if we could get to a place where, because I work with a lot of people who no longer believe in this nonsense that you were told, and even some of it got passed down to us, like and diluted, but it just changes form. Like slut shaming is still happening. Yeah. It's just slightly different now, if that makes sense. But the shame remains. It does. Just shame as an actual nearly part of your psyche and your brain. And
that's a really interesting point, because one of the things that I think I wrote about in the book, but I'm doing a one-woman show at the moment, and it's one of the things I talk about is that shame. And as I mentioned, I became, as we were called back then, officially an unmarried mother. I love the negative framing of that, like as if I became pregnant all by my own self.
Yes,
I didn't. But like the shame attached to that, even though when I gave birth it was 1987, things had improved in Ireland. Joining the EU was a huge step forward, because suddenly the government had to introduce supports for unmarried mothers, and women could keep their babies. However, there were still Magdalene laundries in operation until the 90s. There were still mother and baby homes in operation. But even though they had faded a little bit, the shame was still right there. And I mean, I wasn't pregnant as the result of rape or incest or anything like that. And I came from a middle-class family who supported me. But the shame was still there. And it was quite overt at times. I tell the story in the book, and I do it in the show as well, about being at home on maternity leave. And my father was, he would call himself a senior civil servant. And he had just retired. And he had a friend and a colleague who was also a senior civil servant. He was in a different department. He would have had a degree of public profile. People would have known this man's name, right? So he rang the house one day. I was on maternity leave and I was at home. He rang the house one day to speak to my father. So I answered the phone, one phone in the hall. I answered the phone. He said, "Can I speak to Michael?" I said, "Fine." Gave the phone to my dad. And I could only hear my dad's side of the conversation. But my dad's side of the conversation went, he first of all said, no, that was Barbara. Obviously, the man ringing thought I was my mother.
Okay.
And he said, no, that was Barbara. And then he said, no, she is working. Yeah, no, she does have a job. She is working. No, she's actually on maternity leave. And I could feel my father like starting to get hot under the collar and feeling very kind of stressed about all this, very uncomfortable. And he said, yeah, no, she's on maternity leave. The next thing he said was, no, she didn't get married. No, she's not married. The next thing he said was, yes, she does know who the father is.
Oh my God.
And I was so upset by that. Not for me.
Yeah.
Not for me. I accepted the shame. I thought that was part of the whole thing.
Okay.
But I didn't want my father feeling embarrassed or ashamed or uncomfortable by my being an unmarried mother. And it took me years to actually drop that shame.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was very prominent back then was these discussions that used to be on radio and television all the time about the scourge of unmarried mothers, because the government were offering supports now. This was encouraging girls and women to get pregnant just to get their hands on all this moolah, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Sure. So there was that. And then they used to say, and the other problem is that these unmarried mothers, their children will be delinquent because they have no fathers. And I remember, even though my logical brain was like, that's bullshit, like that's bananas. If you hear something enough, you take it in.
Of course, yeah.
And that's like the shame you're talking about. You do take it in.
Absorb it, yeah.
And it took me until my daughter's 21st birthday. And we had a party for her. And I remember standing watching her dancing with her friends. And I had this light bulb moment where I suddenly went, she's okay. She's actually the same as all her mates. Like she's no better, no worse. She's exactly the same.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, I got angry all over again.
I know, yeah.
And those conversations that I had listened to for a good 10 years after she was born were very often included a man of the church. They were usually male panels, and they very often had either a priest or a bishop. We were a great country for having these media-friendly priests and bishops who subsequently turned out themselves to be fathers.
Yeah, well, what I was going to ask then was, you had even that man on the phone and asking that, and that shame, essentially, that gets absorbed. How much of that shame was related to you and being sexual and being a sexual woman versus you being, pregnant, let's say, if that makes sense? Like, did the shame seep into your actual relationship with your sexuality going forward?
No, thankfully it didn't.
Good.
Thankfully it didn't. Good. I've always been a bit of a rebel.
Yeah.
I've always been, and again, I think, my height has a lot to do with it. I always stood out. Do you know what I mean? So I was never somebody who kind of blended into the background. So thankfully it didn't affect my attitude to my own sexuality. It did affect my attitude to my daughter, waiting for her to go off the tracks because these men had all told me that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But no, thankfully it didn't have any effect. And it was funny because having been outside of the circle of respectability for 10 years as an unmarried mother, and I say I had a book to go and claim my social welfare that said unmarried mother's allowance. It was great. But I went back to work. And I mean, what always amazed me as well was I never, like the people my friends obviously were fantastic, but even my neighbours who were older men and women, I never felt any issue from them, which was amazing and wonderful. But thankfully, as I say, I was outside the circle of respectability for that 10 years. And then I met a man and got married and had 2 more kids. And suddenly I became like respectable like everybody else. And I was like, I'm not entirely comfortable being respectable like everybody else. Like to anybody outside, we look like a normal family. Yeah. Even though, and I mean, it was very important that I always said this to my girls from the time they were like old enough to understand, was that, you know, our family began with me and Carla. Yeah. And then Paul joined. Yeah, and then they joined. Lovely, so it was a different genesis. And I was always very upfront with Carla as well about the fact of her origins and her father, who she doesn't know, he's never been involved. Okay. But she always knew the truth. Yes. And I think that's very important because that's another thing I think that we do, which again feeds into the whole sexuality thing. Yeah. Secrets. Yeah. We don't talk. We don't talk. We keep everything hidden. Yeah. And as long as on the outside everything looks okay, we can, you know, we don't like to show what's actually going on. And that's, I think, and that again feeds into our attitude to sex and sexuality and all that kind of stuff. That we keep things hidden. And that's not healthy. No, it's not. And we always say shame like thrives in that silence and the secrecy because we fill in the blanks nearly with shame. Yeah, exactly. You know? Exactly. We're in a more sex positive era now in general. We still have our issues, of course, misogyny, homophobia. They haven't gone away. Like there's still problems. But I'm wondering, was there any moments in your life where your attitude, and it sounds like your attitude towards sex was never negative to begin with anyway, but was there any point that you started to look at sex or sexuality or women in a different way? Not really, because I'm trying to think as you're talking. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with any of my friends about masturbation, for example, in relation to each of us individually. Yes, yeah. So I think all that sex positivity has probabably been a bit too late for us. Right, okay. Because most of us are married and, then it all becomes quite different. And I mean, no, that sounds awful. But you know the way, like sex is, it isn't as important. It isn't as big a thing as when you're younger and you're, maybe in different relationship or whatever. I think what worries me now a lot, and I can remember again when Carla, the oldest, and she was quite young and she wanted to lift to a beauty parlour one day. And I thought she was getting a manicure or something. I was like, grand, I'll drop you up. Dropped her up. And I said, what are you getting done, by the way? And she was getting, which is the one where you get all the hair removed, all your Hollywood hair. She was getting that. And I was like horrified. Yeah. I was like, why would you want to get that? Yeah. Like, that's going to make you look like a child. Yeah. Why? And I was completely baffled. And we had a row in the car. I was like, I think that's terrible. I don't know why you do that. That's weird. But it was the influence of pornography. Yeah. And that's one of the things that worries me now. And that's one of the things that I remember I did talk to my girls about a lot. Whatever you see in porn isn't generally what sex is about and isn't generally what women want. Yeah. And, it's up to you to decide what you want and what you don't want. I'm a firm believer that when it comes to sex, there's always more to learn and always more to explore. And that's why we have weekly bonus content of the G-Spot available when you sign up to Headstuff Plus. So that is double the episodes. And not only do you get all of that, but you also get access to all the bonus content of the other Headstuff podcasts. You get ad-free listening, and it's an amazing way to support my work, which I really, really do appreciate. You get all of this for just €5 plus VAT per month, and you can sign up by going to headstuffpodcast.com. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the episode.
Amazon One Medical presents Painful Thoughts.
I've been on hold to make a doctor's appointment for 23 minutes now. The automated voice has told me 47 times that my call is very important to them. I'm starting to think that they don't think my call is important at all.
With Amazon One Medical 24/7 virtual care, you'll get help fast without having to remain on the line to make an appointment. Amazon One Medical. Healthcare just got less painful.
AI is moving fast. So fast, it's hard to keep up. In fact, in ServiceNow's latest AI Maturity Index, scores dipped 20% from last year. But that's okay, because AI isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. You may be behind today, but tomorrow you could be a pace setter. Dive into ServiceNow's AI Maturity Index and see how you can innovate as fast as your ambitions. Visit servicenow.com/AI maturity.
We might get into the dilemma because I think it relates. Yeah, you have a dilemma to answer.
Oh, have I? You didn't tell me that.
I'll answer it with you. Don't
Holy
worry.
God.
This is
I'm about to do me leaving cert.
When I read this, I was like, "This is right up your alley."
Oh my God! I hope so. Yeah. Okay.
Can
I Google the answer?
You're underselling yourself now. Okay, dear Grace Alice. I am embarrassed to say that I have an intense fear of aging. I'm early 40s, single, and feel like my sexual prime is in inverted commas, has been and gone. I know I shouldn't buy into all the ageism, but I genuinely fear that invisibility older women talk about. Sick of feeling so negative about it all.
Oh, that I can do.
Yeah,
that
see?
I can do. Yes, that I can do. Well, yeah, I mean, coming back to what I said earlier, and your letter writer, whatever, has hit on it. Two things. Number one is that we live in an intensely ageist society. Ageism is probably the last discrimination that is perfectly acceptable.
Yes,
thinking that people should retire. I know legally that they can't be forced to, but thinking that people should retire at 65 is absolutely and utterly ridiculous. Painting women, and it hits women different than men. We have a lexicon of terms with which we can describe older men, which include silver foxes and elder statesmen and them gaining gravitas.
They're gentlemen.
And all of that.
Yeah.
The only negative one probably, which is true, is the grumpy old man.
Yeah, that is a thing.
Yeah, that is a thing, definitely. But there's a whole heap of disparaging terms for women, none of which are, there is no complimentary terms.
No.
So, as I say, you'll see, oh, did you see your man? Oh, he's a lovely silver fox now and he's this and he's that. And with a woman, it's like, geez, did you see Mary? She really let herself go.
And can I just say, the only terms that are ever viewed as somewhat complimentary are based off of men's fetishes or desires, so like MILF or cougar, and they're not do you know what I mean? They're not actually positive terms. They're based off of maybe a younger man being into an older woman, so they're hinging on the male gaze.
Exactly. And they're all about your appearance.
Exactly. Or your desirability.
And your desirability. Yeah. So what I would say to that woman is that your 40s can be a challenging decade, because I do think you're aware that you're now staring at 50, and 50 is like a fulcrum. I found that when I got to 50, it was like look back, look forward, and you're kind of going, God, I'm over halfway now. And you start to go, that. Jesus, But what I'm saying is some of the best years are still ahead.
Yeah.
Society tells women we become invisible. We don't become invisible. In actual fact, once a woman gets to, and this is again another reason why I'm so passionate about the message for women of enjoying your older years, what I call your third age, which is, and that woman's 20 years away from it. If your first age is 1 to 30 and your second age is 30 to 60 and your third age is 60 plus.
Okay.
And that third age can be so delicious because it's so freeing and all the rest of it. But society tells you, once you're in your 50s, oh, you should be fighting aging. Oh, lines, wrinkles, you should be doing all this stuff. All of that is to serve two purposes. Number one is to serve the capitalist society in which we live. There is literally billions made out of making women hate themselves and feel insecure about how we look.
And fear aging.
Yeah. So we are sold all these products, which in my view will make not a tiny bit of difference. But it's also about keeping us in a box.
Yeah.
Because once you as a woman get to the stage that I'm at, where I think, I actually don't give a shit anymore. I actually don't give a shit what people think. I'm not looking for anybody's approval. I don't want to hurt anybody or upset anybody, but I'm not afraid to rock a boat. I'm not afraid to call it like it is. I'm not afraid to stand up for something I believe is right.
Yeah.
In a way that perhaps I would have been more slower to do when, like, my kids were younger, going, Mom, like, what were you doing on the protest march? Like all the kids at school or whatever, or you had a job where, if you were starting to rock boats, something might give you problems. Suddenly you're at a place where none of that actually matters anymore. And that is when you become truly powerful. And that's what society doesn't like. At the very end of my book, I write this thing about a day I spent with an owl. And I quote a writer who says something, I'm probably going to butcher this. There is nothing Oh, I'll come back to that. It's something about people thinking owls are inauspicious, but actually what's inauspicious is people thinking owls are inauspicious.
Right, okay.
So and it's the same with older women. Thinking older women are, as we are portrayed, like the Irish mammy, harmlessly batty, not really good with technology, past it, as that woman says, past your sexual prime. None of that is true.
Yeah.
Actually, none of that is true. As you say, when you get to a stage where you're actually quite comfortable, I am not any longer bothered about whether somebody thinks I'm attractive or not. I'm good enough for me. And so I would say to that woman, please do not fear aging. It's society's messages that are making you fear aging, and they are not true. As you get older, you will have fabulous freedoms. And it's not just freedoms from your kids. You've got freedom from your biology. It is a delicious time of life, and you are not invisible.
And it's interesting that she's mentioned she's single in all of this, because I think that ties in with, when you mentioned power there, like we're thought often as girls and women that our power lies in our, again, desirability.
Yeah.
So our power is ultimately being beautiful or being attractive or whatever it is. And then, as you said, you realise actually that's not power at all. Like, it is a type of power, but it's not the kind of power that's going to enrich your life.
And it's transient.
Yeah, and it'll 100%.
And it's there to fulfill the evolution of the species,
Exactly. But, I'm wondering for this person, even, this whole thing of being past, the sexual prime thing just sends me, because it's just made up. Like, you can't just pick. There are probably times biologically where we're maybe very physically more geared towards having more sex. Whatever, grand, probably linked to reproduction. But I would like to define your sexual prime as the point in your life or the period in your life where you're comfortable in your body, you're comfortable in your sexuality, you're whatever that looks like. You're advocating for yourself and your pleasure. Like, that could happen in your 20s, unlikely usually, or it could happen in your 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. It's because often people say your 30s for some reason. It doesn't have to be then at all.
No.
Because it's not about being in a physical, specific body.
Yeah, I agree.
It's your mind.
But I also think that life, what I have learned, if life is about anything, it's about change. And nothing is static.
No.
Everything changes and things ebb and flow.
Yeah.
So you will find that your sexuality or your comfort with your body or with your sexual nature ebbs and flows as well. There's times when you feel that power and when you feel, great. And then I certainly found in menopause, my sexual appetite just fell off the cliff. I just was not interested.
Yeah.
And then it came back. So,
very natural,
things ebb and flow all of the time. But to think that older people aren't having good sex is nonsense,
It is. And I think it's a lack of, when you see it, you can be a kind of thing. Like, we're seeing more now.
Yeah.
But see enough kind of older women, sexual, even in films or whatever, and not in a comedic way, in a genuinely cool, normal way. Like, I work with for this listener, I hope they're a listener, I presume they're a listener for this writer, or what's all this for? I work with women in their 50s and 60s who are using their first sex toy, or they're dating, or they're only now actually coming into what I would say is going to be their sexual prime, and they're so excited. Now, I'm not saying it's all roses. It is, but it's not all roses for a 21-year-old dating either. Dating can be hard, full stop.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really honest and say I don't have an intense fear of aging, but I resonate with what she's saying because of the conditioning.
Yeah.
I find it, that invisibility thing, men are not falling over themselves on the street for me, right? But the idea of men...
There's a whole lot of fellas standing outside the door downstairs, and I was asking them coming in, what are you doing? They said, waiting for Grace to come out. Or waiting for her to come out.
But like, if I'm really honest, the idea of not being, and I'm going to don't worry, I'm going to end on a positive note. I'm not going somewhere really negative, but it is kind of unsettling. The idea of being invisible to, let's say, not all men, but maybe men your age or whatever. It feels alien in the sense of it feels like, oh, how will I deal with that?
But that throws you right back into who am I?
Exactly. 100%.
It does. It is jarring. And I'm 6 foot tall. So, when I was younger, like a lot younger, like in my 30s or in my 20s, I know I attracted attention because I was tall as well. Now, some of that attention wasn't great. Men don't really like women they have to look up to. I can make men's heads fall off by just standing up to greet them. They'd be like, ah. But like, I don't attract that attention now because I've grey hair and I'm older and my face is lined and I'm happy to be the age I am.
Yes.
But I don't attract that same attention. But I see that. And it's not that I'm invisible. I'm not invisible.
No.
But men don't perceive me in the same way because I have, as they consider that I am not as decorative or perhaps as useful sexually as I would have been when I was younger. I see that as a superpower.
Yeah.
Because that means you are going to be underestimated.
Yeah.
And the element of surprise is always really interesting. So if you then get into conversation with, and it is very often men who kind of, or sometimes women who've kind of written you off as, who's your woman? Like, who's the other one? And you start saying things and speaking your mind, you can see them going. Because part of that whole scenario of being invisible and older is that you should be quiet.
Yeah.
Because like, why have you got anything? And when you suddenly are bolshy and have things to say and are confident in speaking them and saying them, putting them forward, you can see people going, that wasn't what I expected at all.
And there's all that language, there's all like mutton dressed as lamb and all these phrases. Again, usually we have for women, and it's like, again, that keeping us small or keeping us...
Yeah. And like, even when you consider bachelor and spinster, a bachelor has a positive thing and a spinster doesn't. A witch. Now, I'll happily claim witch. I am happy to be in my crone phase. I am happy to be, to be considered as a witch. I don't see that as in any way a negative thing because to me, witches were amazing. But,
and so were spinsters because they were women who were basically making their own money.
Yes, exactly.
That's what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly. There are cultures and societies around the world where older women are like lauded as being wise, and they are seen to be the matriarchs of the society. We are the matriarchs of our societies. We're just not given the credit for that.
100%.
But I think, and always I think for women, as you get older, remember that power is rarely given.
Yeah.
You take it.
Yep.
And you have to take your power and stand in your space and go, this is me. I am whatever age I am. And I'm, I look the way I look and I'm okay with that. I'm healthy, I'm well, and I am confident in who I am. And I think one of the things I did in the book, which I kind of did by accident, because I was putting in anecdotes into the book, but when I was editing it, I kind of divided the book into two sections. So the first section is what I discovered afterwards called a life audit, where I looked back at the adult decades of my life and the things that happened in each of those decades that are kind of formative as to who I am now. That is a really useful thing to do because you will, and it's particularly for women because they do lose confidence as you get older, because so much of our confidence, as you've said, comes from how we look and how we are perceived through a male gaze and through a commercial gaze. So once I did that, and I did look back and go, God, I survived that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And we all did. My life is not extraordinary. My life is the same as like a lot of women's lives. So you look back in your life and you go, yeah, like I did. I managed that. Yeah, I brought up the kids. Yeah, I did this. Or, I worked at that, or I set up this, or whatever you did. And you realize, yeah, I've done a lot. And that's where you get the kind of confidence then to go, yeah, I'm bloody good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have anybody put me in a box and say, now I'm an owl one. Now, having said that, I still get on the bus, especially when it's busy, and go, oh my God, if somebody offers me a seat, I'm going to punch them.
Really? Because I'm always like, where is the boundary?
Yeah.
I'm afraid to offer people. Anyway, that's a whole
other thing. The day I come on with a walking stick, then fine. But I look around, I get on and I glower at sometimes people. Not that people don't do it as much as they used to. But I'm always saying, don't you dare get up and offer me a seat. I'm fine, I can stand.
Yeah, no, I'd say that's going through a lot of people's minds as well, where they're like, I'd say my mum would be like that. And what I would add, you probably will be invisible to a certain cohort of people / men, but you will find the people that are meant to come to you will come to you. And whether that be sexual partners or friends or whoever it is, like that's the way I think of it when and again, being honest, I don't have an intense fear of it. It is a bit of a, that's going to be a bit weird. But as long as if I have a partner and if this person gets a partner, let's just say, as long as they see me, right? And they still see me and I still see myself as worthy and interesting. And yes, sexual is part of that. But if I'm single and I'm older, again, I won't be invisible to the right men because the right men are going to be attracted not just by my looks, but my everything else I have to offer.
Like when I reinvented myself into this current incarnation of being a writer and a broadcaster, I used to go out to TV3 on a regular basis to be on the panel on the midday show, which then became the Elaine show, right? So it was like Loose Women. So it was women panel. And we would toss around various different topics, maybe, stories of the day, but it was light and it was entertaining. And and this was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I was very often the oldest woman on the panel. And I used to arrive out there having made an effort with my hair, having made an effort with what I was wearing, having made an effort to look the best I could look. And then you'd arrive into the green room with these women in their 20s and their 30s. And I just, the amount of times when I thought, I really just want to go home. Like, I can't compete. They look, their skin was tight and they looked fabulous and they had glowy skin. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing here. But as soon as we went on air, I realized very quickly, I've better stories.
Yeah.
I've better stories purely because I've been around the block 10 more times than they have. And that was my value. And that was a great lesson. Now, it took me a while to learn it, but it was a great lesson. I thought my value to this program is the fact that I can tell a great story.
Yeah.
And I've an anecdote for everything we discuss because I've done it before.
Yeah.
And I've been there before.
Yeah.
And that's where your value lies as you get older.
Yeah.
And younger women and men, but women more, I tend to find this more with women, they really value that.
Yeah.
They value older women's
do.
insights.
They do.
Because our experience, although, it is quite different because Ireland was different, particularly in Ireland, but it's still relevant. So I find that is where your value is.
Yeah.
So as long as you can just negotiate that change, it's very fulfilling. It is very rewarding. And I think the more older women speak up, speak out, the more we're seen.
Yeah.
And we're seen as we are. I mean, I said the other day at an event I was at, I said, the day that we have, do you remember Vincent Brown?
Yes.
The journalist and TV presenter. And he used to have this program during the recession, The Tonight Show. He presented it, right? Vin B. And I remember thinking, the day we have a woman who is the same age as him and appears on television looking as disheveled as he does, then we'll have equality.
Yeah, which
That'll
would
be
never.
equality.
Yeah.
Because in Ireland, you can be on television, like if you're a presenter, and you can be in your 60s as long as you don't look it.
Yeah.
Tell me one presenter who looks their age, who's on a regular show. Doesn't happen. So, and it's terrible because those women have to work really, really, really hard, in order to remain looking 20 years younger than they actually are.
Yeah.
And eventually it'll catch up with you. You can't anti-age. You are getting older all the time.
And it's really annoying when I find it annoying when people use examples like, you can still be, let's say, sexy at 50. I mean, look at J-Lo. I'm like, I can't relate in any way to J-Lo. And I actually don't know anything about her except how she looks. So it's not like she's, again, I don't know much about J-Lo.
Nothing against J-Lo as such.
No, but she is hugely successful. She's decades-long career. Is that not more interesting than, okay, she looks younger than she is?
Yeah.
And I think what you're describing there of even being on that panel and having all that value to add. I'm a sex and intimacy specialist. I'm always going to bring it back, because this is the podcast. That to me is what sexiness is as well. It's not a look. It's not, okay, fair enough. You could look at someone and think, ooh, they look good.
Yeah.
But that'll only take you so far. It's your engagement. It's your intelligence. It's your humor, your passions, everything else.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's a total package.
And that can be any age.
Yeah, it can be any age. I absolutely, totally agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
So this lady, I think fair play for acknowledging it. I think it's kind of one of those things where we know, as she literally said, I shouldn't feed into the ageism.
No, don't. Yeah, no, don't.
But at the same time, I don't want to shame anyone for feeding into it in the sense that that's the way our culture is designed.
It's endemic.
It's not your fault.
Everywhere. So it's really hard. I mean, I was reading back something in my book the other day for something I was doing, and I was thinking, I'm so conscious of ageism. I'm so conscious of people saying things that are ageist, and I pick people up on it all the time. I've changed from feminist to ageist now, which is more or less the same thing, only slightly different.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wrote in my book more than one time in relation to my health, because I developed diabetes in my 50s. And so I had to take my health seriously. And in relation to that, I talked about overhauling my lifestyle and how I feel younger now than I've done for ages.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's ageist. I don't feel younger. I feel better.
Yeah,
but
such a good point.
We interpret younger as better and older as worser. And so I was even, and it wasn't I felt younger. It was that I felt better.
Yeah, there's this whole conversation now, which I'm sure you're aware of, where we're kind of seeing that anti-aging culture is the new diet culture. Now, not that diet culture has gone anywhere, that's still there, but it's again like, you know, when thinner would always be better at any cost. Now it's like, again, younger, we have 8-year-olds buying skincare routines, 18-year-olds getting preventative Botox. So it's a real thing. And it'll be something else in 20 years. It'll be another ism or, you know, some other kind of culture that we've developed.
The other thing I think which we had, my generation had, was that we had to learn to accept our bodies, difficult and all as of my, you know, and we know the studies show that girls start to see themselves as the sum of their parts very young. Boys don't. So girls apparently at around age 8 start to be able to say, well, I like my eyes, but I don't like my hair, or I don't like my legs, or I don't like. So boys don't do that until much later. But I think the difference was that when I was growing up, you had to make peace with whatever bits you didn't like because there was nothing you could do about it. Whereas nowadays, there are things that young girls and young women can do to supposedly, and I'm using air quotes, supposedly fix themselves. And that's a shame. Because it's like anti-aging. You're probably chasing something that is elusive and is just going to take away your self-esteem and a lot of your money while you're at it.
Exactly. And even if it does work a little bit, is that worth all the energy and money and time you're going to put it? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think it depends on what it is you're trying to fix. But I mean, I know, you know, girls in their 20s and in their 30s just getting Botox routinely, like the way we would use moisturizer. And I'm like, really? Like, we don't know what that's going to do after 40 years of using Botox.
I got it twice in my 20s, and then I was like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. This is ridiculous. Like, I just had a moment where I'm like, what am I fucking doing?
But it also just it re-emphasizes this whole thing. You are what you look.
I know.
And you are not.
No.
And as the mother of girls, and again, I'm 6 foot tall, as I've mentioned. My girls are all tall. So I have been very conscious of making them realize they're not going to be able to wear the same clothes that their friends are wearing in the same way. Do you know, because if they buy a mini skirt, it's literally a belt. Because their, you know, their torsos are way longer. So trying to get them used to, as I had to be as well, to being kind of outside the norm, which I hate saying that.
It's annoying.
But my youngest daughter is 6'2". So, you know, kind of teaching her to stand up straight, be proud of it. You can't change this because height is one thing you can't get Botox for. You can't get anything for. So
not yet. This is shrink us soon.
It will. But this is you, and accept it and learn to make the most of it.
Okay, well, I could genuinely,
the problem of the world, have we?
Solved, dilemma solved. Another dilemma solved. I genuinely could keep chatting to you, but
well, back at you. You're a wonderful host.
You've
made it very relaxing. I was kind of terrified.
I didn't grill you about anything.
No. It was all quite comfortable.
Good. If the listeners want to listen to more of Barbara, well, number one, again, your book is called Wise Up.
My book is called Wise Up. It's available on my website, which is barbarascully.com.
Lovely.
I'm on Instagram at Barbara Scully 111, I think is my title. So if you follow me there, everything. Yeah, I'm spreading the gospel because, you know, Gloria Steinem, who's this amazing American feminist icon of the 70s, she said, women get more radical with age, whereas men get more conservative.
Wow.
Which I think is true. And she said, someday an army of grey-haired women may just take over the earth. And I think if all women realised their power in their 60s and 70s and beyond and started standing up and calling time on certain bullshit that we shouldn't be doing and shouldn't have to be putting up with anymore, the world would be a much better place. And I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome.
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with Head Stuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.